Hey everyone, my name is Casper, and in this video I wanted to do a follow-up on my astrological prediction for Donald Trump. Yes, I predicted that Donald Trump was going to be assassinated, or at least he was going to be attacked, or there was going to be some kind of accident somewhere around July 11th to July 15th. So I am an astrological genius. Everyone worship me and bow down to how amazing I am. And I wanted to make this video as a kind of like, I told you so, but also because there's a lot more to talk about. I wanted to talk more about this Mars-Uranus conjunction because I could have been more accurate with my prediction. But also, I want to talk about more predictions for Donald Trump. So this video is going to be adding more, because I'm on a roll here, right? Like, I already predicted this. Like, maybe I can predict some other things, or, tell you more about what could happen with Donald Trump. Because astrology is, like, magic. So I'll talk more about the Mars-Uranus conjunction. I'm going to talk about August, what's going to happen for Donald Trump in August, September, November. I'm going to talk a little bit about Biden, and then I'm going to finish off the video with basically talking philosophically about astrology. What does astrology mean philosophically? Also staying true to yourself and believing in yourself even if no one believes you, because I will say when I did post this video, when I posted my original video on Donald Trump for this prediction, I was almost getting a little bit worried because it was like I made this prediction that he was going to get assassinated, and what if nothing happens? What if I'm just a lunatic? What if I'm just stupid? Like, why did I say something so stupid? Anyway, so I'll get into that towards the end of the video. But what I really wanted to discuss is more about this Mars-Uranus conjunction. And again, I said that Trump could get hurt from an accident, an attack, or even an assassination involving the loss of his head. So, he almost lost his head. And I think it's really interesting because if you go to where's his chart? Yeah. If you go to his chart, his MC is at 24 degrees at 22 minutes. And if you go to the day that this happened, and actually, so it happened July 13th, and I believe it happened at 6:10 p.m. in Pennsylvania. And someone in my video in the comments made a very interesting, I made the same prediction in my Jordan Peterson astrology video at around 41 minutes. So if you want to watch that, you should, because I was basically saying something bad is going to happen around July 11th to July 15th, like somewhere around there. But someone made a comment. Where is this person? It's hard to see through my fursuit. Yes, the person was Elaine, August 1932. Event: Moon at 22 degrees of Libra, square 22 degrees of Cancer, square Chiron at 23 degrees of Aries. So Moon opposite Chiron. Mars 25 degrees of Taurus, blah blah. And then she said to do like some follow-up thing. But anyway, I thought that was a very important observation and a very interesting observation, because 22 degrees in astrology is the degree of kill or be killed. So if you see a lot of 22 degrees, it means someone's gonna die. It means like it's deathly, right? So not only is this Mars-Uranus conjunction sudden violence, right? Like sudden accidents, right? Because Mars is violence and aggression. Uranus is very like sudden and like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, like it pops out of nowhere. It's so sudden and unexpected. But then on top of this, right, so the shots were fired, right, like right before the sun was about to become 22 degrees of Cancer, right? 2159 degrees is like almost 22 degrees. It's like if you start moving a few minutes ahead, if we get to come on. Yeah, like by 4:30, the sun is at 22 degrees. Chiron is already at 23 degrees. It's almost 22, and then the moon in Libra is at 21 degrees. It's almost about to become 22 degrees. And I don't know, when I heard about the news of Donald Trump, I heard about it, I think at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But yeah, it's just right. And you see like this grand, well, not this grand, but you see this T-square between the sun in Cancer, moon in Libra, and Chiron in Aries. And all of these signs are cardinal signs, so they're kind of initiative, right? They make things happen. Something happens, something changes, right? There's a change in direction, there's a movement forward. It's very initiative, right? And if the degrees are 22, then it's dangerous. And it's even more dangerous if it's Mars conjunct Uranus. So very fascinating stuff. And then if you look at the ascendant, I think the ascendant was at 22 degrees of Scorpio. It was almost 22 degrees of Scorpio. It was probably, was it exactly 4:10 p.m.? I can't remember, but it's just really crazy because like the ascendant was opposite Donald Trump's MC. There's just so much, right? And it's crazy because Donald Trump's MC is at 24 degrees and Mars was at 25 degrees. Uranus was at 26 degrees. Now, I was, in my original prediction, like I did say something was going to happen in early July, especially after July 11th. And it's really interesting because on July 11th, he was supposed to get his sentencing, but it was changed to a later date. It was changed to it was September 18th, and we'll talk about that later in the video because there's more astrology to be said there. But it is interesting how his sentencing was shifted, right? Like, because that Uranus is like that sudden reversal of fortune, that like it was going to happen, but then it suddenly doesn't happen. And so I was thinking that something was going to happen on July 11th because of that sentencing. But because nothing happened July 11th, I started to doubt myself, right? Like as soon as I posted my astrology video for Donald Trump and July 11th happened, or like I got news that like his sentencing was going to be postponed till September. I'm like, oh wow, my prediction is messed up now. But so I just assumed, oh, I guess nothing's going to happen. Like nothing crazy is going to happen. But I was right. I was right all along because 2 days later, right, Mars crossed over his MC. And that's when the violence happened. And so it is interesting, right? Because I did think something major was going to happen on July 15th. And today is July 14th. So we're not out of this energy yet. Like, there's still more that could happen. There's still more that could be said. I was watching, like, other astrologers like Joni Petrie. I haven't watched all of her videos. Like, I don't always keep up with her. But she did say, like, this conjunction could be a sign of war, like a declaration of World War III or something crazy like that, right? So when this conjunction goes exact, there could be something like that. I'm not entirely sure because I haven't looked at other countries or anything. But yeah, so we could get more stuff with Donald Trump, right? He was grazed in the ear. Well, not grazed. Blood was drawn. So, like, we're getting more of this Uranus energy of, like, well, can he run or can he not run? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be okay? So I just think it's interesting. Like, if I were to redo my prediction, right, I should have said July 13th because so many of these planets were at 22 degrees in cardinal signs. I think that is a huge indicator of when the exact time something will happen, right? Especially because the ascendant in Scorpio, the ruler of Scorpio is Mars, right? And Mars is violence and aggression. Mars is the opposite of the ascendant, right? So that's more of an indicator, like, this is the exact time this is going to happen. Like, July 13th makes a lot of sense because Donald Trump's MC is at 24 degrees, right? Because On July 11th, Mars was at 23 degrees. It wasn't close enough to Donald Trump's MC yet. But, and it could have probably happened July 12th, but again, like July 13th makes a lot of sense because of those 22 degrees and because it was still close to his MC. And then also the thing about his MC is that it's at 24 degrees. I also kind of wonder, like, if Donald Trump was born a little bit later, like 4 minutes later than 4 minutes earlier, his MC would have been at 25 degrees of Taurus, which would have fit perfectly with this Mars at 25 degrees, which probably meant he would have actually died, right? Like, I think that's really interesting to think about. Like, your birth really can determine how, like, you're gonna die. Like maybe the bullet grazed him because Mars was at 25 degrees instead of at 24 degrees. Maybe if Donald Trump was assassinated, well, not assassinated, but if he was going to be killed yesterday, he probably would have died. Like, if the attempt was yesterday, he probably would have died. But since the Mars was off by 1 degree. So anyway, that's just one way of thinking about it. And yeah, we're not out of this energy. We still have one more day left. Let's see. I also wanted to... oh yeah, so also the thing about the MC, right? So we gotta go back to Trump's chart a little bit. Right? The thing about your MC is it's also public and recognition, right? So, like, the thing about the public, right? Like, I mean, this thing totally blew up on the internet, right? There's so many people talking about this. It's so sudden. It's so shocking, right? Mars-Uranus in general, regardless of whose chart you're talking about, it's just shocking energy. It's energy that's really shocking. And anyone who has close placements to this conjunction is going to be affected by this the most. Of course, Donald Trump would be, but also because it's his midheaven, it's his public recognition, it's his career, it's his reputation, right? This is going to have like a huge impact on his image, his public image. So even if he wasn't assassinated or attempted an assassination, I still think something would have happened with the public. Something would have happened related to his recognition, and because that's what the midheaven, that's what the MC is all about. And it's very interesting because if you watch Trump afterwards, right, like look at this. He's holding up his fist. He has blood on his face. I mean, this makes him look so tough and so strong, right? Because that he has Mars on his MC right now. He's looking really tough, and it was so unexpected. Like, look at this guy. It's like he's a war hero. And someone also in my video made a comment about how Mars right now is making a square to his Mars in Leo, his natal Mars, right? So, like, there's this, right? And it's weird because, like, when you watch the video after he got shot, you can see Donald Trump trying to like stand up and he's like fighting through these circle of people like, yes, look how tough I am, look at me, I'm still alive. Like, you really see that Mars aggressive energy, that strength that's still there, right? So he looks really tough right now because of Mars on his midheaven. He looks really like strong, but I feel like we need more information because, you know, like, even if you get hit in the ear, it's still kind of crazy, right? And it's totally going to boost his publicity, right? It's totally going to make him more popular. It's going to make him more, I mean, it feels like we're watching a movie in many ways. I mean, it's just so crazy, right? Because it feels very much like, it kind of, like, I just watched Star Wars Revenge of the Sith last night, and it reminds me, here, let me pull it up. The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed, but I assure you, I have never been stronger, right? I mean, this is what Donald Trump is going through right now, right? It's like, yeah, I was attacked and I almost died, but I'm still the king. I'm still this amazing leader, you can totally trust me, I'm just so amazing. And then, you know, Padme is just like, wow, so this is how liberty dies, with a thunderous applause. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Star Wars is such a great, I mean, the whole series, I love it. It's so great. Especially Revenge of the Sith. It's probably one of my favorite movies ever. Like, I watch it all the time. But yeah, so going forward, right? Mars just went over, and sorry, I'm like trying to say multiple things at once. I need to take my time. But it is interesting, right? Because Mars is going to go through his 10th house now, because it went over his MC. Of course, this is the Placidus system, so like if you did the whole sign house system, Trump's Mars would actually be going through his 11th house, and 11th house is networks and groups. So I mean, regardless of how you look at it, if it's like, is Mars going through the 11th house or is it going through the 10th house? Something with his public image, especially like the 11th house is like your audience. It represents your audience. It represents like the people that you appeal to. So if Mars goes through here, like your audience is going to become much more aggressive. Your audience is going to be empowered, especially because, and this is where I'm going to talk about August. So in August, something very similar to this is probably going to happen again. I don't think Trump is going to get assassinated necessarily, but I do believe that, well, I'll just show you. So we still need to get through this Mars-Uranus conjunction energy. So things are still a little bit dangerous. Like if I were Trump's astrologer, I would have told Trump to lay low ever since like probably like the beginning of July. I would have told, right, as soon as Mars became within 10 degrees of Uranus, I would have told him, hey, you shouldn't do anything, you should lay low, things could get really violent and dangerous. And I would have told him to lay low until, like I said, in my prediction, be aware of July. By the time we get to July 21st, I think that's when things will start to cool down a little bit. Things will be safe. But what's really interesting, right, is that Donald Trump already has his Jupiter in Gemini. Well, Jupiter in the 10th house, and it's in Gemini, and I think that's why he's getting so lucky. Like I think Jupiter is protecting him in many ways. But I also think that this Mars is going to make a conjunction to Jupiter, and it's going to create this kind of similar effect where things will get a little bit crazy again. Although the difference between Uranus and Jupiter, right? Uranus is sudden ups and downs. Also, Uranus is moving away from his MC. It doesn't go retrograde until much later, but Mars is starting to approach Jupiter now. And Jupiter, again, is the planet of wisdom, the planet of luck, optimism, good fortune. So the planet of violence and aggression, Mars, is about to approach Jupiter. So I feel like Trump's audience, the people that like Trump, and Trump himself for his recognition, they're going to feel very bold. They're going to feel very strong, right? This is like the Emperor Palpatine, like, I've been scarred and deformed, but I've never been stronger. This is this energy coming together. And it becomes exact on August 14th. August 14th, August 15th. And it's very fascinating, right? Because, again, the sun will be at 22 degrees of Leo, right? So we're getting more of that 22 degrees. Chiron is still at 23 degrees. Actually, I just want to see something for a second. Yeah, it's really interesting because Chiron is moving forward at 23 degrees for like the whole month of July, but then it goes retrograde in August, and it goes back, and it's going back to that 22 degrees. So it's like hovering at 22 degrees. Again, the sun is at 22 degrees of Leo. That more of kill or be killed. So and the Mercury will be conjunct Regulus, which is super fascinating, right? Because Donald Trump's ascendant is conjunct Regulus. So I feel like Donald Trump on this day could deliver some kind of speech. He's going to deliver some kind of very motivational speech. He's going to say something that's going to be very empowering, very grand, very great. He's going to speak with this bold confidence, right? Like a king. He's very much going to speak like a king on this day, I feel like. I feel like that's what it would be. And it's going to be super motivational for his audience, super good for his publicity, super good, some kind of announcement. That's what I feel like. Because Mercury, the planet of communication and writing, is going to be conjunct his ascendant. And ascendant is like your body and your physical presence. So, like, he's going to communicate something big and bold, right? Because his ascendant is conjunct Regulus. Regulus is the kingly star. So there's that. Something big and bold. It's also interesting because, yeah, like Mercury. Yeah. Okay. So there's that. So that's like another prediction. Like, something kind of similar. It's not going to be nearly as crazy as what just happened with Mars and Uranus conjunction, but you know, August 14th, August 15th, somewhere around there, we're going to get that kind of that ramping up of energy again. Something's going to happen. And then what's also interesting is that Donald Trump, remember how, like, so Donald Trump was sentenced. Well, he was supposed to get his sentencing July 11th, but instead it was moved to September 18th, right? So, like, I think that's Uranus throwing in, like, that wild card, like, oh, you were going to be sentenced, now we're not going to. So if we go to September 18th, this is really fascinating. If we go to September 18th, Jupiter will be exactly conjunct his Rahu, conjunct his Sun, and conjunct his Uranus. So, like, I don't think his sentencing will be like a super crazy day. I don't think anything's really going to happen. But like his sentencing, I feel like it's going to be light and positive. I don't think anything really bad is going to happen for him, right? Because Jupiter at 20 degrees of Gemini basically means that, like, he's being protected. Like, I don't feel like his sentencing is really going to hurt him that much. I don't think it's going to change anything. Because Jupiter will be exactly conjunct his Rahu, which is at 20 degrees, conjunct his Sun, and conjunct his Uranus. So I feel like, I mean, it might change things, because his natal Uranus could flip things over, but ultimately, I feel like he's protected. I feel like the sentencing isn't going to hurt his presidency in any way. If anything, it's going to boost it, and he's going to come out kind of lucky, in my opinion. I think that's what's going to happen. And then next, we're going to be talking about November. So what's really interesting is that as we move forward, Jupiter starts to go retrograde at around 21 degrees. So, and whenever planets go retrograde, that's really, really important. So, like, Jupiter is stopping right around this Gemini conjunction that Donald Trump has, right? So Jupiter is staying here. Jupiter is going to keep giving him luck. It's going to keep helping him. And what's really interesting is that this retrograde keeps Donald, like instead of Jupiter going forward and leaving this conjunction that Donald Trump has, Jupiter kind of stops there and hovers right before the election that takes place November 5th, right? Jupiter will be right on his Rahu, and and his sun and his Uranus, right? And I said this in my last video, like, I feel like during the elections, I think Donald Trump is going to be very confident, and I think he's probably going to win the presidency. I mean, it looks really good for him. I mean, we'd probably have to look at Biden's chart and all of that, but I also think that with this Jupiter at 20 degrees of Gemini, it means that whatever happened with his sentencing on September 18th is going to determine his election results for November 9th, or kind of change the election. I mean, obviously, I think anyone without astrology would be able to make that conclusion, right? Like, his sentencing would affect his presidency. But, like, it's just interesting to note that, like, Jupiter will be in the exact same spot September 18th, and then it's in the exact same spot in November 5th, or it's pretty much in the same spot. So I think that's worth noting. So there's a connection between those two dates. I don't think anyone believes Biden is going to win, so it's pretty pointless. I mean, we could look at Biden's chart if we wanted to, but I also kind of just wanted to say, like I wanted to, like, kind of predict Trump's death, or kind of like, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm probably overdoing myself right now, because I could be wrong in a lot of my predictions, but in 2030, I think Trump will suffer some kind of a loss. It'll be May 15th, 2030. Because on this day, Mars and Saturn will both make a conjunction. His sun will also be kind of close to that conjunction, and Jupiter will be at 22 degrees opposing this, and his MC is at 24 degrees, and of course Algol is right here. I think Trump will suffer some kind of I think Trump will actually get hurt here, because instead of Uranus making a conjunction to Mars where it's sudden and over the top, Saturn is restrictive and slow and the end of things, right? And if the MC is your recognition and your reputation, it kind of means, like, Donald Trump is done, right? I mean, it's over for him. I'm not exactly that's too far into the future. I mean, here's the thing, like, in order to predict things in astrology, because, like, I feel like a lot of people, especially scientists and rational people, right, they're so critical of astrologers, but they don't realize, like, astrologers can make mistakes, right? To be an astrologer is to practice astrology, right? You don't do it perfectly. It's the same way with practicing medicine or practicing law, right? Just because a law is wrong does not mean laws automatically are bad, or because a doctor gives you a false diagnosis or a wrong diagnosis doesn't mean medicine is wrong, or that you can't trust doctors, right? Because people make mistakes. And this especially applies to astrology, because astrology it's not well known. It's hidden information. It's really hard to read a chart and then to read the situation and the surroundings, and then to make predictions, right? Like, I feel like the only reason why I was able to make that prediction with Donald Trump is because it was very clear, right? There was a lot of political tension. People were already talking about assassination, right? And there was a lot of evidence already, like with Kathy Griffin holding up Donald Trump's head as a joke. And then when we see the astrology making a Mars-Uranus conjunction on Algol, which is beheadings, right? I just put two and two together, right? There were two parallels, right? There was the astrology saying this, the situation was saying this. It seemed like they were both connected. And I think that's how astrology works. Astrology, I think Ptolemy said, the great astrologer, the ancient astrologer, he said, like, what happens above happens below. It's kind of like telling the time, right? If it's 8 a.m., what do people usually do at 8 a.m.? They get up in the morning. So you can usually predict that people will get up in the morning at 8 a.m. So it's kind of with astrology, like, what happens when Mars and Uranus come together? Accidents happen. Who is someone that is most likely to get into an accident? probably Donald Trump right now. I mean, you just put two and two together, and that's how you make predictions. But like when it comes to predicting other things, it's not so obvious. Like, it takes a lot more thinking and a lot more time. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand with astrology is that astrology tells you the abstractions. It tells you the energy underlying everything. It tells you the time, but just because it tells you the time does not mean the concretes are going to manifest exactly as you expect, right? Like, Mars-Uranus conjunction is a kind of, right? The time is accidents are going to happen. Random violence is going to happen. Sudden violence is going to happen. Those concretes can come out in a lot of different ways. It could have came out where Donald Trump just tripped and falled. It could have came out where Donald Trump was sentenced like he should have been, and that changed things. It came out with someone shooting him in this case, and he lost, or he got hit in the ear. So the concretes can come out in a lot of different ways, and that's what makes it difficult, right? Because the concretes are very specific and very nuanced, and that's where astrology doesn't do its best. But you know, the concretes are much easier to predict when you have specific figures, right? Like Donald Trump, where his MC is very close to the conjunction. Or someone you know in your life where their placements are really close to the conjunction. That's where you can kind of figure out like what's going to happen. So, but I was going to talk about Biden's chart. Like, the only thing I was going to say about Biden was like, his chart is kind of similar to the United States chart, because the United States has a Cancer rising, or sorry, not Cancer rising, a Sagittarius rising, the same way that Joe Biden does. And both the United States and Joe Biden have their Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which is a very good placement for Cancer. So it's just really interesting, because I think Joe Biden in many ways kind of mimics the energy of the United States, except the big difference is that Joe Biden has a lot of planets in Scorpio, and Scorpio is the sign of death and destruction and transformation. It's just really interesting, because I think Joe Biden in many ways is playing the role of the transformer, right? He's still running for president, even though it's clear that he can't run. It's so clear, but he's running anyway, and I think it's because he's like, he's making this transition for Donald Trump to be president. I don't know why. I feel like Donald Trump was just meant to be a ruler. I feel like Donald Trump was meant to be in control and to become president, especially because the first year when Donald Trump was elected in 2017, there was that eclipse in August. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, there was this eclipse on August 21st, and it was exactly on Regulus. It was exactly on Donald Trump's ascendant. And you could just tell, like, this is a leader coming in. This is a real leader coming into the country. And I think this is why I feel like a lot of people believe in Donald Trump, and why people think he's our only hope. And why a lot of other people think he's like a demon, like he's the worst thing ever, especially because Donald Trump's midheaven conjunct Algol, if that's your recognition, and Algol is like the demon fixed star, it's the ghoulish fixed star, it makes a lot of sense why a lot of people would see Donald Trump as like a ghoul or a demon, or like the greatest thing ever. It's this, like, Algol has this kind of double-sided nature where it's good and bad at the same time. So anyway, yeah, so for the final thing, I just want to say, I think astrology is definitely true, and I think I proved it. I mean, plenty of people have already proved. I mean, astrologers have predicted stuff many times in the past, but no one pays attention to them. No one bothers to listen to them. No one in the public, no scientists, no one does for some reason. It's shocking to me. And, you know, I just want to say, like, if you believe in something, right, you know, you should think for yourself and and make your own conclusions. Just because people think you're crazy and they don't believe you doesn't mean you're actually crazy. It just means you have access to information and knowledge that other people don't have. And don't give up that knowledge because other people don't believe you. Don't be intimidated by other people. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about. And if there's anything that I've learned about life, is that things are never what they are on face value. Right? Like, when I first learned about astrology, I really did think it was just star signs and that was it. But like, if you actually learn about astrology and dive deep, you'll discover things that are so amazing. And I think it goes for everything. Like, one of my favorite philosophers is Ayn Rand. And again, a lot of people don't really understand what she's saying. People just misconstrue her. And, you know, like, the point is that I'm trying to make is, like, a lot of people think they know things based on like a superficial surface level, but they don't. And whenever you judge something, whenever you learn about something, make sure that you actually learn about it, that you dive deep into it and really figure out everything about it, because you'll probably discover truth in it that everyone ignores or misses. Like, you can discover truths about the world by simply taking the time to understand things. That's something that I have learned, and that is probably one of the greatest lessons and principles that I live by, is that you can discover the truth by simply taking the time to dive deep into it. You can learn about things by simply taking the time to understand it, while everyone else decides not to, because they choose to go by public opinion, or they choose to not think for themselves, or they're comfortable with the knowledge of the times instead of thinking about the knowledge that could happen in the future. And, you know, the thing is, if astrology really is true, right, because it's like, well, was this a coincidence, right? Did I just magically happen to predict that Donald Trump could get assassinated? And I mean, it could be possible, it could be a coincidence, I got super lucky, but there's so many things like this. Like, there was that, you know, when COVID happened, there was a Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto conjunction. They were all conjunct during the COVID pandemic, right? And how it's so rare for this conjunction to happen. Like, this never happens. So when this conjunction does happen, it's just so interesting how it happens when COVID happens. Or like when I got in a car accident, Mars was exactly conjunct my ascendant. Mars was making a transit over my Capricorn ascendant when I got into a car accident, right? And Mars is violence and aggression. And Mars is your body. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of things in astrology that it's not just a matter of coincidence. It's not just a matter of like, oh, you got lucky. Like what I said was so, like, it was so nuanced and so detailed. Like, my prediction was so detailed that it wasn't just like I got lucky. Because it is true, like, a lot of people in astrology, I mean, there's a lot of charlatans and con artists in astrology, and a lot of that is because astrologers are still learning and they're still trying to figure out how astrology works. That's one aspect to it. And so they can sound like charlatans when they're actually just making mistakes. They didn't know any better. Like, I've made so many predictions in the past that were completely wrong and stupid because I wasn't doing the astrology correctly. I wasn't reading the chart correctly. I wasn't reading the situation correctly, so my prediction didn't make any sense, and it made me sound like a crazy person. That's just what happens when you're studying a field that isn't well known or understood. Astrology is still in its embryonic stage. It's still in a process of development. It's not nearly as advanced as physics or chemistry or whatever hard science you think of, right? Astrology is still, right? It's the study of fate and fortune. How well do human beings study fate and fortune? How well do they understand this? We hardly know anything about it. There's still a philosophical debate going on between free will and determinism. So you have to be open-minded with these things. You can't just assume things when you don't actually know. And so yeah, I mean, there's, like, when it comes to the philosophy of astrology, it's just like there's so many things that, like, if astrology is true, like, what does that mean about our fates? Are our fates sealed? Does free will actually exist? Right? If people today actually took astrology seriously, and Donald Trump had an astrologer as an advisor, and the astrologer told him to be careful for the first half of July, or for most of July, would Donald Trump still get assassinated like in August, right? Does playing with time and fate make things even worse? Like, is it taboo? Is it wrong? Like, Christians say this, like, it's wrong to read people's charts. It's wrong to study astrology because you're basically cheating. Like, you're looking into time when you're not supposed to look into it. It also says a lot about, like, I think astrology, especially if you're neurodivergent or you have I don't know, it's like synesthesia where, like, two different, like, of your neurons are activated, right? Like, you can taste sound or you can hear colors. Astrology is a form of time-space anesthesia, not anesthesia, synesthesia, where you can see time. I mean, if you read about people who have time-space synesthesia, and they have these drawings of squares that represent different parts of the year, and these squares look very similar to the zodiac. It's because these people see time. And I think astrology is a very advanced and sophisticated form of time-space synesthesia. It's like a sixth sense, right? Like, synesthesia is like a sixth sense that human beings have, and they're able to see and can make connections to things. This is why, you know, people who are neurodivergent, or they have neurons linked in a way that is different from the average person, they're able to see things and do things that most people can't do. It's because they have a wiring that makes them better at figuring things out, or they have a skill. So anyway, I think that's why a lot of people don't like astrology. It's because they don't have the right wiring for it or whatever. But I do believe anyone can learn it, and, you know, astrology is fascinating and I love it. And, you know, I believe in astrology now because I was definitely ambivalent. I was waffling. I wasn't really sure if I really believed in astrology or not, but I'm almost certain that it's true now, and it's pretty fascinating. So, yeah, I'll see you later.